Hi there, welcome to the latest episode of my 10 Minute Moan. And the topic of this 10 Minute Moan is an amazing case where the Labour Party secretly sabotaged a Chinese spy trial after withdrawing a star witness who had been set to label China an enemy of Britain. Now, when you're at court and you've been charged with spying, you basically has to be proven that whoever got the information was an enemy of the state, or it's not really a bigger problem, is it? So the trial of these two alleged spies was secretly sabotaged by Labour, who refused to brand China an enemy, it's been reported. Christopher Cash, 30, of Whitechapel, East London, and Christopher Berry, of Witney, Oxfordshire, were each charged with the offence of spying under the Official Secrets Act. They were set to face trial in October, but proceedings against them stopped on Monday, sparking criticism from Downing Street and MPs. The pair were accused of passing information about the government's foreign policy to a high-ranking member of the Chinese government. Sir Keir Starmer's spokesman described it as being extremely disappointing that the two men would not face trial. However, under the Official Secrets Act of 1911, Mr Cash, who worked for Tory MPs, and Mr Berry, a teacher, were accused of collecting and passing information that would be directly or indirectly useful to an enemy. Can you see the importance of having China described as an enemy in court to this particular case? Now, however, according to the Telegraph, the case collapsed after ministers withdrew a star witness who was set to testify that China was indeed an enemy of the UK. The Crown Prosecution Service was under the impression that senior civil servant would give evidence to establish that Beijing was an enemy of Britain, which was needed for a successful prosecution, following previous assurances from the Conservative government. There were also plans in place for intelligence officials to testify in a closed court to protect their identity. However, the prosecutors were told that Labour ministers were no longer willing to describe China as an enemy in court, causing the case to collapse. Last month, Dan Jarvis, the Labour Secretary Minister, told Parliament the decision to drop the case was independent from the government, and it was not any government minister to speculate on the reason behind it. So what he's basically saying here is true, but he's missing out quite a big fact. The CPS decide whether to prosecute or not, but they were dependent on the government supplying witnesses. When those witnesses were pulled, the case collapsed. So he is technically right, without getting into the specifics why. Speaking to the Times, the Commons Speaker, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, said the decision effectively gave Beijing licence to operate within Parliament, after the men were alleged to have targeted the Chinese research group of MPs. The official who commissioned the research has since been named in media reports as Cai Qi, a senior aide to Xi Jinping, the Chinese president nonetheless. Mr Cash and Mr Berry have denied any wrongdoing. Mr Cash's lawyer has said his client is entirely innocent and should never have been arrested, let alone charged. Sir Lindsay, the Director of Public Prosecutions, said there was no outside pressure influenced the decision to drop the charges. As Speaker, I take the security of the House incredibly serious. I believe this leaves the door open to foreign actors trying to spy on the House, Sir Lindsay said. This door must be closed hard. We must pursue all avenues to ensure the protection of members and people that work within the House of Commons. It will not be tolerated. Stephen Parkinson, the Chief Prosecutor in England and Wales, said he shared the disappointment and indeed frustration expressed by many parliamentarians, as well as members of the public, that his prosecution had to stop. Behind me is Glasgow Sheriff Court, one of Europe's busiest courts, and because of that fact we'll see every week several members of the public and podcasters etc. facing trials in here for a number of things. However, an increasing number are for posts on social media, videos on YouTube, etc, etc, etc. And for that reason and that reason alone, I believe it would make sense for everybody who does podcasts as a minimum to join the Free Speech Union, because they will help protect you when the law turns on you. That doesn't give you carte blanche to say what you want as a member, but it does give you the protection to help you when the law goes wrong. This is not now only something that should be considered by podcasters, because we are seeing more and more people each day arrested. Normal people who don't even see themselves as civilian journalists arrested for posts on social media. So it makes sense to join the Free Speech Union, because we live in this country in 2025. He said the CPS, which he leads, had determined the case had to be stopped because of evidential failure. However, Alicia Cairns, the Conservative MP who employed Mr Cash, said the decision to withdraw a witness raised a serious question about constitutional impropriety. She said Starmer must answer, was it no longer in the public interest to prosecute, or more likely he and his Labour government don't have the mettle to defend the British people and our great democracy. Priti Patel, the Shadow Foreign Secretary, said the government decision to withdraw a witness was deeply alarming. This really creates serious questions for the government and calls for them to be much more transparent and honest about their entire involvement in this case, she said. A government spokesman said it is disappointing the individuals will not face trial, given the seriousness of the allegations. The decision not to prosecute under the Official Secrets Act was made by the Crown Prosecution Service, entirely independent of government. National security is the first duty of government, and we remain steadfast in upholding this responsibility. We will continue to use the full range of tools and powers to guard against malign activity. The introduction of the National Security Act has strengthened our ability to protect the UK and detect, disrupt and deter any state actively seeking to undermine our democratic institutions. So it seems the government are trying to play both sides of this argument. They indeed did make the decision which ultimately led to this case falling. However, it is true that they didn't make that decision, but their decision made that decision a foregone conclusion. How can you prosecute someone for selling or supplying details to an enemy of the state when you can't have a single witness confirm that who they gave them to is an enemy of the state? So this is nothing more than gaslighting again by a government, which appears to be an almost daily occurrence with this government, and indeed even local governments up and down the length of the country, where people are just blatantly told a version of the truth, fudging words, or downright lies in some cases. But in this one, it is one Olympic level mental gymnastics to not understand that Labour did prevent this trial from going ahead, and that, for a government, when the security of the country is at stake, is a ridiculous, stupid position to take. So if you enjoyed this video and you want others to see it, please help me here, because the channel's not getting as many recommendations, i.e. YouTube putting it into other people's timelines as it once did. So it needs to, for each video to grow, it'll need thumbs ups for likes, plenty of comments below, and hit the share and share it to friends out with YouTube. If you've not already done so, please consider subscribing and double check if you think you are, if you have actually still been subscribed to the channel, because plenty are reporting that they are no longer subscribed, regardless of whether they unsubscribed or not. However, more important than all that, unless you're the type of person who doesn't provide the witnesses, expert witnesses required to allow a trial to go ahead of such a magnitude, then not you, but everyone else, have a great day. Cheerio, bye now.